What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Awakening World. We have a really powerful show tonight. It's what's now an annual collaboration with our good friend Suzanne Ross, who puts together remarkable retreats. And we're going to learn all about her San Diego Transcendence retreat. And we're going to be kind of talking about quantum consciousness. And at this amazing time when disclosure is finally happening, when people are having more and more extraordinary experiences, we have some some of my favorite presenters are with us. We're going to hear from Whitley Strieber, who is probably the most beloved experiencer. He's been talking about his experiences with extraterrestrial and galactic family for decades. And I first worked with Whitley way back in the 1990s when I was producing the Paranormal Borderline and Strange Universe show. So it's great to have him with us. We also have our good friend from UApedia, Tim Spenny, with us. And we're going to learn all about some new exciting developments at UApedia. And Eben Alexander is back with us. I think most of you know him. He wrote Proof of Heaven, which is probably one of the most beloved books about near-death experiences and his own personal experience. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversation all these amazing gentlemen are going to have. And to help us with that conversation is our beloved co-host for the evening, Alan Steinfeld, and the lady of the evening, the goddess who gets to manage all these gentlemen, Suzanne Ross, is going to be with us. So it's going to be a dynamic show. And speaking of dynamic, to get us off to a rockin' and rollin' start, here is our beloved Omashar.
Well, namaste and welcome everybody, and welcome everybody who's watching on our streaming partners and Facebook and YouTube. And so we're going to go into a little floral experience here. So this song is called Sweet Water, and the flowers are on purpose. When flowers grow, dripping with dew, and rivers flow in sapphire blue, I suddenly know what a fall god I knew. I'm a tears, lost fear of the ocean. When autumn sun kisses my cheek, whilst cool winds come with poems on my tongue, but no wish to speak. I'm a tear that's lost fear of the ocean. I'm a tear that's lost fear of the ocean. Sweet water, when I give you my heart, I already start to feel better. My sweet water, won't you send me your love forever and ever and ever, forever and ever and ever. Oh, when evening stars shine all around, my grieving heart's no longer down. And things that were lost, that's where true hope's found. I'm a tear that's lost fear of the ocean. I'm a tear that's lost fear. My grieving heart's no longer down. I don't understand, yet I love mysteries. I'm a tear that's lost fear of this ocean, which I just dived in. Sweet water, when I give you my heart, I already start to feel better. My sweet water, won't you send me your love forever and ever and ever? My sweet water, won't you give me my heart? I already start to feel better. My sweet water, won't you send me your love forever and ever and ever? I'm a fear, it's lost fear of the ocean. I'm a tear, it's lost fear of the ocean. I'm a tear that's lost fear of the ocean.
Going to gallery view. Let's all send some twinkles and some love and appreciation. It's such a beautiful song, Omashar. I think that's
It is it's a truly beautiful song, and it's funny. I've just come off a 5-day fast. I broke it this morning, just water and herbal tea, and I had to put myself together, and I lost it during the last chorus of the song. I thought, where have I gone? And so it's very, very interesting when you empty yourself out. But yeah, thank you.
Well, who knows, Mary? You'll have to share with us about the near-death experience 5 days of fast is creating for you.
Right.
Well, Omashar will be back tonight with 2 more songs. And it's a special time because he's not going to be with us for a few weeks. You're going to be heading to England soon, and to Canada.
I will. I'm going this weekend to Canada to a conference called the Diamond Heart Conclave, and it's put on in Vancouver by the Radiant Rose Academy. And so that's always an amazing, really high event, like Suzanne's events.
Wow. Well, that's a perfect segue to bring Suzanne up, don't you think?
It is. See you.
Well, while you're here, you've been at Suzanne's events. What about Suzanne's events have most inspired you?
I'm guessing the variety, but also the professionalism in their production, because there's no all bells and whistles are there, no stops are unpulled, and the quality of the presenters that she brings, they're just when you see them on screens and see them in books, it's one thing, but when you meet them in person and see the real deal, and they all have wide open hearts and they're all fun people, because as a presenter at the two events that I was at, I got to be in the green rooms with them, and you realize, holy smoke, I love what you put out there, except for Alan and all the and him I really love. That's why he's muted. We'll keep him muted. And yeah, it's just a very professional event. And when you go to an event like that, you're stepping into like a space shuttle. And by halfway through the first day, everything that you thought that was going to hold you back is gone. By the end of the first day, your vibration is so lifted that you can't remember what was bugging you before you came into the event. And then you have the second day, etc., and it just builds and builds until you really do not want to leave because it feels like home. Yeah.
Well, where so many of us are going to be in just a month is in San Diego for her annual San Diego Transcendence Retreat. And the topic, which we're going to kind of explore a little bit tonight, is exploring quantum consciousness, experiencing quantum love. So definitely I'm looking forward to hearing what Eben and Whitley and Tim and everybody has to say about what quantum love is and how we're going to experience it. And let's just start by asking the woman herself, Suzanne, tell us about quantum love, quantum consciousness, and a little bit about your vision for the retreat.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Scott. I always enjoy being here. And hello, everyone. And thanks for joining us. It is truly my pleasure to offer this annual San Diego Transcendence Retreat. This is our second year. It's really important to me to create an environment like I have with this tropical paradise at the Catamaran Resort, right on Mission Bay, right on the water. And so, along with the Catamaran Resort, our retreat kicks off with a sunset dinner cruise on the water. So just trying to curate the most enjoyable, immersive retreat experience possible. Quantum consciousness. Well, I've long been on a quest to discover the origin and nature of consciousness, like many of my colleagues and presenters. And that really led me to explore not just spiritual concepts, but also quantum physics. Quantum physics, I believe, is the spiritual science as it unfolds parallel realities and shows how everything is interconnected through quantum entanglement and a superposition where everything is possible all at once. And so all of these concepts about consciousness that incorporate spiritual beliefs really fascinate me. Now, my experience has been that when you tap into the quantum field, what you discover is quantum love. And as I've interviewed several of the presenters who are going to be speaking at my retreat, they say the same thing. When they go to the other side during a near-death experience, they experience love and light like never before. The regressionists, like legendary Barbara Lamb, tells me that the majority of the ET contact that is brought through during the regressions are benevolent, loving, galactic family members supporting humanity. Of course, we have Paul Hynek talking about the DMT experience. When I was interviewing him, it brought tears to his eyes to talk about the beautiful mosaic that reality truly is. Quantum, forms like sacred geometry and this feeling of overwhelming love. And so I believe that when you truly tap into this infinite field of love and light that is quantum consciousness, you do feel the love. And so that's what made me want to have the theme for my retreat be experience quantum love, explore quantum consciousness.
Beautiful.
Right.
And Alan, you, of course, you go around to all the festivals, all the events. I never know what city you're in.
I don't either, but no, this is our culture. This is our community. This is cutting edge. And what's so important, I think, about this particular conference in San Diego is first, we have two major experiences. Whitley Strieber, Eben Alexander, they are talking from their deep, intimate, personal experiences about the life-changing moments that woke them up and is now waking everyone else up who hears their words and who has similar experiences. But they are the leaders in this field of experience. And so happy Whitley got to talk at the Disclosure Forum in Washington recently, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But Suzanne's events, particularly this one, is about the new human, the new facilities that are coming online for human beings, and we're modeling it after the ET contact experience, the near-death experience, the DMT experience, the channeling experience. Well, Bashar is probably one of the best channels of our time. So this is what Tim Spenny, another guest tonight, called what did you call it? Doorways into awakening, Tim, or something like, yes?
Entry points to quantum consciousness.
Right. That's the theme of this conference. And Suzanne has picked people from different parts of those entry points because the entry point is the awakening of the new human being. More of who we are coming online. Things like the telepathy tapes really wake us up to that possibility that we're all telepathic. We're all contactees in a way, and we are at the cutting edge of something new happening. That's why Whitley is always at the cutting edge. His latest books are downloaded in a sense for the times we are in, the times that are changing, I would say. So,
really well put. And it's, in this time that I was talking about disclosure, I think most of us in our community are in the awareness that disclosure is our own personal experience, that, we are all having more and more, whether it's a near-death experience or a connection with a deceased ancestor or a lucid dream or a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience. More and more people are having these experiences and sharing them. And it's kind of a 100th monkey kind of thing happening, where the more that people talk about it on shows like this, the more that they read Eben's book or Whitley, hear him on Dreamland, then it becomes more safe to share. I had that experience. And then I think it becomes safer to start having more and more experiences.
right. And the idea about quantum, Einstein revolutionized science when he said it's all relative to the position of the observer. So what we're learning in this new culture of contact, of communication, is that the personal experience, the subjective reality, is a valid point of view. And there's actually only subjective. The illusion of objective material world is what's kind of fading away, and this subjective experience that we can share with each other are the new realities we're coming into, and that's very quantum.
Well, I think we're ready to bring our first presenter up. Suzanne, do you want to introduce us to Eben?
Absolutely. Evan is a world-renowned neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience, thinking that consciousness came from the brain and then finding himself above his body, looking down at his body with his brain in it, and then having this glorious afterlife experience, but then called to come back to share with the world about the other side and the true nature of consciousness. I'm so delighted. It's such an honor, Evan, that you'll be joining us in San Diego.
Well, Suzanne, thanks so much for that introduction. I'm very excited about this meeting. A lot of exciting talks to be shared. And for me, it's a beautiful opportunity to share my story again. But I go much beyond the original Proof of Heaven story. I mean, for people who haven't heard that story, I'll just share briefly that I had a severe case of bacterial meningitis back in 2008 in November. It sent me into coma for 7 days. And I had spent the first 54 years of my life honing a very kind of scientific worldview. And when I say that, I mean the conventional materialist scientific training of the 1970s and 80s. That's when all my kind of education was. And I believed a lot of the materialist position, mainly because that's what we could study. I mean, materialism is about quantifying things and being able to measure amounts of things. And it's kind of difficult to measure the amount of love or the amount of consciousness, the amount of wisdom, or measure your beliefs and things like that. And so science kind of steered away from those kind of things, thinking that they weren't, scientific topics. But of course, consciousness is. The only thing anyone has ever known is the inside of their own consciousness. And even though I used to subscribe to the materialist worldview that pretended that the only stuff that exists is the physical world, and that you must therefore somehow muster consciousness out of the substance of the brain, and yet nobody over thousands of years has been able to do anything to really connect the brain and consciousness in a one-to-one fashion. In fact, back in 1975, Dr. Wilder Penfield, one of the most renowned neurosurgeons, a Canadian working in Montreal, wrote a book called The Mystery of the Mind. And he made it very clear in that book, as a neurosurgeon who had stimulated the brain in awake patients more than anyone else. And I've done a lot of those cases myself as a neurosurgeon. They're fascinating, but what you end up learning is the brain is not ultimately the producer of consciousness. The brain is very related to consciousness, no question about that, but it's a big deal whether it's the producer ultimately, or if it's just a filter or transceiver. And in fact, the scientific world now is waking up broadly to that reality that no, it makes no sense to think of the brain as the ultimate creator of consciousness. There are too many kind of episodes of non-local consciousness, like telepathy, which occurs in about 35% of identical twins, is one example. Remote viewing is a scientifically validated field that reveals that we have access to information outside of space and time, outside of our normal thinking of sensory processing. And this is where the scientific world has started to awaken. Now, the real tip of the spear in all of this is near-death experiences, because they really force your hand when you're trying to pretend that the brain creates consciousness, because people start having experiences when, either with clinical death, and sometimes in some of these NDE cases, people have been dead for at least 3 days or so. So it's kind of astonishing that people can come back from that and report any experiences, and yet they do. And in fact, near-death experiences, I would say, in some way, some fashion, were the source of all of our spiritual beliefs going back for thousands of years. People had exotic experiences that showed them there was much more to this world than the obvious physical characteristics. And yet, it wasn't until the late 1960s, when doctors developed techniques to resuscitate cardiac arrest patients, that we started to populate this world with tens of millions of people who have had NDEs. And what I'll be going into in my discussion in San Diego is kind of a deep dive into the modern world of not only NDEs, but our modern scientific interpretation of consciousness. This will involve discussions of related experiences like shared death experiences, which happen in perfectly healthy people, maybe a healthcare worker or a family member, and they could be 1,000 miles away from the person who's dying. It doesn't matter, because in that spiritual realm, there's no limitation of time and space for access. And so we start finding that there's this theme of kind of a unification of mind, that we're really sharing the one mind of this existence. And I'll go a lot into that in my discussion in San Diego, and also a discussion about why quantum physics is actually relevant to any of this. I mean, why is it that quantum physics is related to consciousness? And for one thing, has a lot to do with the original observations of the quantum physicists, that the world they were observing, the subatomic and microscopic world, in fact, in many ways does not behave like this world. You have superposition, you have entanglement, superposition where particles can be in multiple places at once, entanglement where particles that are created or linked together in a certain event maintain a connection as if they're one particle, even though the two parts of it are traveling through space and are very far apart. They can trade information instantaneously. Seems to violate Einstein's special theory of relativity, and yet this is the way entanglement works. And in fact, the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2022 was for quantum entanglement. And in fact, there is absolutely no way that you can say that we're preserving our notions of four-dimensional space-time and causality and our notions of what Einstein called local realism in the face of entanglement. Entanglement disputes every bit of that and shows us that there are information pathways in this universe that are not so limited by space and time as our normal modes of kind of communication and information passage. And this is where it starts to get fascinating. So in that sense, I will be going into the scientific revisions of materialism and where it's all headed, a brief discussion of things like idealism, neutral monism, topics like that, philosophical positions that kind of relate the brain and mind in certain ways. But then we'll end up kind of reaching for the stars. That's really what you have to do to start to explain all this fully. And yet this is all based in a scientific assessment of the nature of reality. It for me has been an incredible transformation. I mean, the very fact that I went through my experience with severe bacterial meningitis has been confirmed broadly. All the facts I presented in that medical case in my book, Proof of Heaven, were greatly strengthened by a scientific report on my medical records that was published in September 2018. And that publication made it very clear that my brain was in no shape to have any kind of dream or hallucination because the meningitis affected my brainstem and all the lobes of my brain. There was no place unaffected that would remain to host any kind of dream or hallucination. So there really was no place that modern neuroscience could place my consciousness to give me that extraordinary, unbelievable, and yet richly kind of ultra real experience that I had deep in coma. That, of course, is the subject of the book, Proof of Heaven. But since then, I've written Map of Heaven, which just talks about the commonality and the overlap in qualities of these experiences. And then the most important book, I'd say, is Living in a Mindful Universe, co-written with my wife, Karen Newell. She's been a partner in this work since 2011. And this is where it gets especially exciting in San Diego, because what I will be delivering there is not only a scientific discussion about the modern evolution of our notions of the primacy of mind and how the brain is a filter that allows us to interconnect with others across time and space, but also, especially important, will be the workshop that I will be sharing in San Diego. And I'm especially excited about that because the workshop is where the rubber meets the road. That's where we start sharing tools. And in this case, one of the tools we'll be examining is what's called binaural beat brainwave entrainment. This is a form of meditation that I found to be extremely attractive within about 2.5 years of my coma experience, when I recognized that just reading a lot of books wasn't going to get me to a deeper understanding, that if I wanted to understand my near-death experience, I needed a daily, regular practice of meditation, of going within, any way to turn off that little ego mind. I love how Michael Singer, in his book, The Untethered Soul, he calls that voice in your head your annoying roommate. That is true. Do not even begin to think that that voice in your head is your consciousness or is your soul, because those things are actually a much deeper, richer, more profound aspect of self that can be revealed through meditation and centering prayer. Now, I'll also be discussing the modern science of psychedelics in my talk in San Diego. And that'll include not only a discussion in the main lecture, but also in the workshop, because psychedelics and their kind of impact on understanding the brain-mind connection are very important. Note that I am fully a supporter of meditation. To me, meditation is the key to any deep revelations about one's spiritual connections and kind of spiritual reality. But I do believe it's very important that we now have psychedelics to study, because they tell us a lot about the brain. Very specifically, they tell us the brain is not creating consciousness. In fact, that is the subject of Dan Brown's new fictional work, Secret of Secrets, where he basically takes all the science that we discussed in our 2017 book, Living in a Mindful Universe, but he turns it into a fictional account. But his conclusion is very much the same as ours, and that is we're dealing with one mind and the brain is a filter, and that we're all interconnected. And certainly from the NDE community, there is no question that that one mind and that that conscious experience of getting closer to that one mind and the interconnection of higher souls is absolutely about love. Love, binding force of love, compassion, kindness, mercy, acceptance. I mean, we learn in the life review in NDEs that to hurt another is to hurt ourselves. In fact, in the life review, studied scientifically, you find that about 85% of those people who report life reviews say it's from multiple perspectives. So if you've been busy panning out pain and suffering to others, being greedy or selfish, in your life review, you get on the receiving end of all that. So gently over time, these life reviews are nudging all of humanity much closer to the golden rule, to treat others as you would like to be treated. And that's exactly where I'll be going in my discussions in San Diego, both my lecture and especially in that workshop. And in the workshop, we'll also be sharing a 20-minute heart meditation to get deeply into the kind of mind and heart connection. Because it is truly all about love. And ultimately, this lesson is what will save humanity from its worst qualities that have emerged through the false sense of separation of the materialist age. And that separation is a myth. It's an illusion. We're truly sharing one mind. We're all in this together, bound through forces of love. And I'll be discussing all of that from a scientific and a personal perspective, as well as sharing some meditative tools to help each and every one of us get deeply into that form of knowing.
Wow.
I'm so glad. I was going to ask you about love, how your experience led you to, what your relationship to love was before and after your experience. You kind of touched on it, but I'd love to hear your personal transformation. And then Alan has a question, and then we're going to take a look at your website.
Well, certainly, I think it's no surprise to anyone involved in near-death experience research that love is the binding force that brings us into wholeness and healing. You cannot deny it. In fact, in the last 2 weeks, I've been writing forwards for 2 very different books, but both of them approach love from different directions. And I can't share more about that now, but the bottom line is that love is really at the core of all of it. And, the Beatles had it right. I guess Dionne Warwick, all we need is love was absolutely critical. And for me, as I viewed myself as a compassionate, loving person before my coma. But I think what the coma and my near-death experience showed me is how fundamentally critical, what a concrete element, foundational structure consists of this notion of love. And in that realm, in the spiritual realm, it's an unconditional love. Now, that's a little different from what we often experience here, especially sometimes in this world. Romantic love can tend to be somewhat conditional, although the love of a parent for a child and vice versa might be a little more kind of an unconditional love. But the unconditional love has an incredible power to it. And I often like to think that what we experience as love as human beings is basically the love of the creation by the creator. And that is simply acknowledging that we work with this God force, or whatever you want to call it. For me, God is a perfectly good word, but it's not the Christian God I grew up with. It's a far grander God than that, one that is purely of love, compassion, kindness, mercy, acceptance, which of course is consistent with the Christianity I was taught, but is consistent with many other religions too. I think that we need to move beyond religious ideologies trying to throw this around. And from my perspective, to simply treat near-death experiences as the gold standard helps to guide any religion to its better form. And in fact, there's a book by Robert Koppes, who's in the IONS community, the International Association of Near-Death Studies community, called Essence of Religions, that I can highly recommend because it gets right into every bit of that. It takes the 5 main faiths in the modern world, the Abrahamic faiths of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and combines them with Buddhism and Hinduism, and then compares them with the gold standard of near-death experiences as kind of our highest instruction in spiritual connection and wisdom.
Alan, I know you've got a question, but we actually are already a few minutes over, and I still need to go to Eben's website. But we're going to do a roundtable conversation,
Okay.
and your question
Okay.
will be first. All
I have
right?
a couple of questions now for
Yeah,
Evan,
there's a
but
few that have come in. Everybody has questions for you, but you'll go first, Alan.
all
But I
right.
do want to get to Eben's website because he's offering something really beautiful to us. First of all, his website's easy to log on to. It's his name, ebenalexander.com, EBEN Alexander.com. And he is providing us with a free 33-day journey into the heart of consciousness. It's connected to his most recent book, Living in a Mindful Universe. Eben, I'm going to click on it and tell our audience a little bit about this beautiful offering.
Well, the 33-day journey, it's an email drip campaign. So when you leave your first name and an email address, you're off and running to 33 days of emails. Each day will be a separate topic from Living in a Mindful Universe. We discuss things, like psychedelics, consciousness. We built the first 5 chapters are all about building up what's wrong with a conventional model. And then the rest of the book is all about, well, where do we go from here? And how do we make sense of this and learn to live this life? And it takes near-death experiences, shared death, it takes the hospice literature, all these many things, including all the evidence for reincarnation out of University of Virginia, where they've proven more than 1,700 cases of past life memories in children, and then found the person who lived before. So there's a broad kind of set of information that you need to understand this. It goes far beyond NDEs. We talk about quantum physics, why that's related. It has to do with every neuron being a quantum computer and the tight measurement of location in ion channels that opens up the momentum vector. I mean, I'll go into that in more detail in my talks in San Diego, but the 33-day journey, also there are 14,000 people plus who have taken that journey and left their comments, their stories. They help each other. So each day is a touch point with all those other people's comments and experiences right there. So you can explore every bit of that. So this 33-day journey is absolutely free. It also comes with 4 Sacred Acoustics audio files that you can listen to with headphones or earbuds to help you get into differential frequency brainwave entrainment through binaural beats.
Fantastic.
Those are all topics I'll cover in San Diego.
And I just signed up for it. I can't wait to experience it.
Well, good.
And everybody definitely
does.
sign up for it. Eben, there's several questions for you. You'll see them in the chat box. And but we need to bring on our next amazing guest, which is Whitley Strieber. And Suzanne, I'm going to bring you on, and Alan, because I know you all have something to say about Whitley. I'll just start by saying that honestly, his book Communion was such a wake-up call for so many people. And then watching how his relationship has changed over the decades to this experience, I think has led the way for so many. So I want to thank you, Whitley, for that, and hear what Alan and Suzanne want to say by way of introduction.
Well,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to say really quick, I have a very personal connection to Whitley's book because my father at the age of 18 had a missing time experience. And when he discovered Whitley's book, it gave him so much reassurance on the nature of his experience, because in the book Communion, it talks about all of these different contactees and the very similar experiences they had, even though they lived on opposite ends of the world even. So the book Communion sat on our kitchen table for years. And my father has passed now. So there's a very personal connection. And thank you so much, Whitley, for writing that watershed book. And it shifted humanity's perception about contactee.
Exactly. It was a signifying agent to bring us into the age of contact. And I think Whitley is the most experienced experiencer there is. But I feel, Whitley, you're also doing something more than you're sort of digging a tunnel into the unknown by gearing your experience against a new cognition of reality. So it's like you're going with places in your writing, in your personal experience, that is sort of like an explorer of new lands where there's no words, but there's just that feeling of adventure and trying to communicate something that has not been put into words yet. Is that fair to say, Whitley?
Well, the key word there is adventure.
Okay.
I am an adventurer by nature, and I love to go down into caves and not bring a flashlight. I guess that's what it comes down to. And I'm always ending up in places you don't belong. And so what? That I do belong there. I feel like I do.
So what's your latest adventure there, Whitley? Tell us.
Well, my latest book is called Transformation 2026. It's I took the book Transformation, which was written back in published back in 1988, and just beaten to death by the media. The Los Angeles Times even went so far as to put it on their fiction bestseller list. And the media they weren't expecting communion. And the New York Times innocently published a good review of it. And of course, every skeptic in the country sent them letters until finally I don't think they may have reviewed one or two more of my books, but they were very careful from then on. So anyway, that book was buried, but what it is about what it's actually like to live with those guys, with her and her friends. I mean, not Anne, the other one you can see beside it. And what is it like to live with them and to have them come into your house, to have them come into your children's life? That happened to us. And the reason I wanted to, and it's published with a lot of updates, and the reason I wanted to do that now is that this is going to happen again to more people, because it's folded into the disclosure process. Over the next few years, gradually, more people are going to be having this experience, and it's a challenging experience. It's very, very rich and it'll change you more profoundly than anything else, I think, could. But it's not easy. It takes intelligence, and it takes guts. It takes a lot of things.
Are they pushing us to be a new type of human, pushing us to shift consciousness? Is that the plan on their part?
I don't know. I do know this. I mean, I'm not interested in their plans. What I'm interested in is what I can get out of it. In other words, who knows? I mean, what they may be here for. But the important thing is, what do I make of this for me, for us? And that's what's critical to me. What do we make of it for our children? At the Disclosure Foundation, I was amazed to be recognized, because most of these academic and scientific and political things like Soul Foundation or Authors of the Impossible at Rice University, they'd rather I didn't exist. I'm an embarrassment. So, I mean, my letters from the communion letters form the center of the whole thing at Rice University. But I'm not really welcome as a speaker because I'm too embarrassing.
Oh, no, I think it's changed. Jeffrey Kripal's a great guy, but
Yeah, he is a great guy, but anyway, we won't go down that path.
I know, but you're talking about what it means to you. So you're talking about meaning. What is the meaning, in a sense?
For me,
yeah,
the meaning has been to crack the cosmic egg. I mean, the veil between the living and the dead collapsed for me. I stayed in contact with my wife after she passed on. Very real, provable contact. That it was utterly fantastic. I mean, when she passed on, the grief I experienced was mind-bending. I was sitting here, right in this room, so grief-stricken the night it happened that I almost couldn't move. And suddenly the phone rang. And it was a friend of Anne's, and I thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to tell her that she's passed. And I was tempted to just not answer it, but I couldn't do that. They were dear friends, and so I answered it. And she said, Whitley, I expected her to say, Whitley, how is Anne? But instead she said, Whitley, is Anne all right? I said, well, she passed on about 2 hours ago. She knew she was sick, that's why she called a lot. And she said, because I just heard her voice in my ear telling me to call you. And I thought, how odd. And then that kept happening. My kids took me out to the desert, out to Palm Springs to get out of the house. And I was sitting up in the mountains on a bench, just almost in the middle of nowhere. And suddenly my cell phone rang. And I thought how incredible that it's even got coverage. I answered it, and it was a friend from Nashville saying, Whitley, I just had the oddest experience. I heard Anne's voice in my ear telling me to call you. And then I remembered. Back when the communion letters were pouring in huge numbers, Anne came out of her office one day. She was the one who read all the letters. I had not got the patience or the speed reading. She could read a novel, a big novel in an afternoon. She was the smartest person I ever knew. And so she's reading and cataloging all the letters and everything. And she comes out of her office and she says, Whitley, this has something to do with what we call death, the close encounter experience. They're linked. And it turns out, and so we discussed this, and a lot of the letters would be involving people's dead friends and relatives and the graves. And that happened at our cabin. The example, Lori Barnes, who was Anne's secretary, she said, I need a secretary. And I said, oh, I'll call Manpower and see if we can get someone to come over. And she said, no, I'll find the secretary in these letters. And I thought, how is she going to do that? But Anne Roseanne, about an hour later, she said, my secretary's coming over to meet me. I said, what are you talking about? She said, here's a letter. I look at this letter, it doesn't say she's a secretary, it says she's a singer and an actress. She said, look at the handwriting. No, she says, have you ever heard of her? I said, no. She says, look at the handwriting. And it was beautiful. She said, that's a trained secretary. She's a secretary, all right. And she was an actress and a singer by avocation, but a secretary by profession. She was Anne's secretary for 15 years. She used to come up to the cabin. She, of course, was an experiencer as well. That's why she'd written us a letter. And one day she comes out into the cabin. We had a big group of people there. Anne would assemble these groups so the visitors would come. They wanted groups there to come to. And she comes in after a walk and she says, I just saw my brother. And it turns out she was walking on the road in front of the cabin, and there stood her brother. Now, here's what was extraordinary about that. Her brother disappeared 20 years before, and the FBI had given up the search for it. And then there he was. And she immediately said to him, oh my God, come down and meet my friends. They're right down there in that cabin. And he said, I just wanted to tell you I was all right. And he drifted back into the woods and just disappeared before her eyes. In other words, he was actually dead. And as soon as Anne heard the story, she said quietly to me, The visitors will be here later tonight. And they did come. They came in, one of them came in and woke up a lady called Raven Dana and touched her on the arm and woke her up. And interestingly enough, there was an eye of Horus hanging in the room when he did that. And this now gets it into even deeper stuff, because there's a lot of connection between what's happening in the close encounter experience, the dead, and also a lot of our ancient knowledge and ancient religions. So this is all was happening. This is all in transformation, now Transformation 2026. The book got suppressed, literally suppressed. But now that disclosure is unfolding, more people will have this experience, and they need to know what it's all about. And they also need to know what happens to your children, because I saw my son abducted with my own eyes. How much time do we have right now, Alan?
You're good on time. You're good on time.
I'm good on time? Okay. Because I
Good.
want to get to this here. One night, they were coming to the cabin a lot, and I was very, very concerned about my little boy, because he was 7, and I did not want this to enter his young life. And I would patrol the house. I don't sleep much. I never have, not since I was a baby. My mother, when I was a little tiny one, my mother ended up in a rest home because her child, her little boy, never slept. But in any case, I still don't sleep much, and I didn't sleep much then. So I was patrolling the house about 3 o'clock in the morning every morning. And one morning I patrolled the house, and I thought his bed looked funny. And I went into his bedroom, and the sheets had been bunched up to look like there was someone in the bed, but it was empty. And you can't imagine the fear. It was fantastic. I ran out of the room. I ran into the basement, upstairs, everywhere. He wasn't in the house. Then I thought, it seems impossible we'd go out to his clubhouse. He had a little clubhouse out in a little copse of woods in the front yard. It seems impossible he would go there. I ran out, and when I ran out, I saw 3 figures, and this is all in the book, in Transformation, standing in the road, and above them, a huge area of the sky was black as coal, no stars in it. And I gradually realized that this was triangular shaped. And then a voice said to me, "Can you go back to bed, or do we have to help you?" It wasn't a nice voice. And I started screaming. I started yelling. And the next thing I knew, I was back in the house. And I started to come back out, but I ended up in his room, and he was there again, asleep. And it was so dreamlike, I thought, maybe you had a nightmare. And I went back to bed and sort of slept fitfully. And the next morning I said to Anne, I told her what I remembered, and she said, well, maybe if it was a nightmare, it was a nightmare. Let's see if he says anything. And he was very quiet at breakfast. He didn't say anything. Then after breakfast, he went into his bedroom and came out with a piece of paper that he had written on, and handed it silently to his mother. And it was extraordinary. It was what a 7-year-old perceives when he's with the visitors. And for years, I thought this was lost. And I found it as one of the impetuses for going to redo Transformation, because this happened during that period. And suddenly I found it tucked away in one of our family albums, and I had not realized it was there. I'll read it to you now. Don't expect it to sound like what we might write, because it's not. O thy Colossus, thy stand before me with the twinkling of a beam against the thin pane, to see the world along the edge of the earth, to see the golden beam in their eyes. Now,
That's classic.
it's 7-year-old boy wrote that.
Wow.
This is where we're going.
Mm.
If we can do it right. And that is, don't be scared, but don't be stupid. Both things. And we can do this. They wouldn't be here if we couldn't do it.
I'm going to actually bring Eben up for a moment because I'm really curious, Eben, as you're hearing Whitley's stories, how does the kind of dreamy yet profound experiences that he's describing fit with what you've experienced and what other people in the NDE world have experienced?
I think it's basically an example of kind of the broadening outreach of what we see as mind and the ability of our mind to perceive information about other beings and about our environment. But to me, there's a lot of overlap. And I think that's why studying these things, by really the same kinds of, I'm sorry, hold on one second. My computer's trying to go to sleep on me. But at any rate, I think that there's a lot to be said for the kind of overlap. And for example, when we consider UAPs and consider ETs, to me, considering higher dimensional beings, this is something, higher dimensionality is something that often comes into the scientific discussion around near-death experiences. As an example, Bernard Carr, who's a physicist in England, has been working on higher dimensional, both spatial and temporal dimensions, as ways to more readily explain these phenomena. And I think that when I hear Whitley talking about, his experience and his kind of different kind of intersection with the universe compared to mine, I realize that we can all learn lessons from studying every bit of this. To me, it's all quite fascinating. And I think ultimately we're going to find that there's some overlaps and some principles and some themes that we will find repeated in these kind of fields of study. And just to consider, NDEs as isolated is wrong, but to look at all these as kind of interrelated phenomena, I think can be very educational and instructive.
Well, I think what you and Whitley bring up is this realm of the dead. I mean, there's something else. It's so maybe Whitley and he, what is this realm? Like you saw your sister on the other side. Whitley's having what is this realm, Whitley?
Let me, I think I can best sum it up. I wrote a book with Anne after she passed called Afterlife Revolution, because she had planned this all prior to dying. In January, before she passed on in August, she was already setting the stage for her return. She knew much about this stuff. I had no idea in January that she would even die, and how she knew when she would die and how she knew, I don't know. But anyway, after we reestablished contact, because I remembered that we had made a pact when those letters were coming in, so I was starting to talk about that the first one to pass on would contact not the other one directly, because we're both too skeptical, we wouldn't have believed it, but we would contact friends and tell them to contact the other one. And it was about the third friend who called, and I realized, my God, it's the pact. She's doing it. She's doing it. And when we were finally back in contact, one of the first things she said to me speaks to what you just asked, Alan. She said, "It looks like you are all intentionally ignoring us." Intentionally ignoring us. We are turned away from the real world. And these visitors are banging on the door. Our own dead are banging on the door. And it's time to figure out how in the world do we turn around and open that door. Anne and I are still very much together, and I wear both rings because we are down to one body, but we're still married.
Aww.
Beautiful. So are we ignoring I mean, Eben, you've been there and back, and I mean, how do we turn it around for the human race to know that there's this bigger reality that both of you have experienced and many others? That's the new human experience to dissolve the walls between these dimensions, I think.
Well, there's no question in my mind that there's a great benefit to intentionally exploring one's inner world, consciousness. And especially when you realize that all of the physical world that we see out there is actually the mental representation of it. And John Archibald Wheeler, the quantum physicist, had to invoke a participatory anthropic principle to even explain unusual quantum effects, like in the delayed choice quantum eraser effect. And so it's really opening our minds to the grander scale of the universe. And the one word I would quit using, Alan, is dead, because
Okay.
in fact, this work that I'm talking about that Karen and I are doing now involves a vision I had in meditation, or a vision I had during my NDE that took me years to fully kind of unravel. But it's one I call the living tapestry, and it basically showed that part of the problem is the illusion of Earth time, and that we're all sharing this current moment in Earth time, and yet there's no such thing as an objective physical reality. That's what quantum physics has basically been screaming at us. And just when you start realizing the details of how life reviews unfold, a third of people who have life reviews say their entire life is involved. And you might wonder, how does that happen during a 10-minute cardiac arrest? Well, it can happen because in that realm, you're truly in eternity. The eternal soul realm is where you're now exploring. And you can go back and forth through time. That's the interesting thing. That's why these higher dimensional models like Bernard Carr is working on in England are so important, because I think that is where we'll start to unravel how all this can be explained and actually find things that we can kind of more readily assess scientifically through measurement and things like that to come to a deeper understanding.
Right. But Whitley, I don't get the connection between ETs and what they used to call the dead, or the people who passed over. I mean, are they in that world? I mean,
Yeah, they are. They don't have a veil between the living and the dead. That's not how they operate. Their presence is not separated. In other words, their presence is in all of these worlds. And it's more than the world. We think of the world of the living and the world of the dead, but those are only two frequencies of consciousness. There are many.
So then you just use the keyword frequency. So would you say, Whitley, that the visitors are at a higher vibration?
Not necessarily.
No?
Some of them are creeps, but many of them are definitely at a higher vibration. And some of them are pretty much at the same vibration we are. And those are the ones we see the most, that are around the most. But there's dark stuff too. I mean, I've been exposed to it, and I'm not very interested in it. And I think if you spend too much time fooling around with it, it can get little sticky. It's a bit like flypaper, so you don't want to go there too often. But the ones I see, the ones that we see, the grays and so forth, they are in some ways on the same wavelength, that on the same frequency that we are, with the difference that they can come and go in their bodies much more easily than we can. They can leave the body and then accelerate into another level fairly easily. It's quite a challenge for us to do that. We can do it. I mean, I've done it, and probably some of you have done it too. But I'm too much of a prankster, I think, and the grays won't let me out on my own. You have to unlock the door for me. But some of you probably can do OBEs on your own very easily, and I know, goodness, Evan, you certainly did one of the great OBEs of all time, and came back with all that fabulous knowledge. So it's, that's the basic difference between us and the grays, is that they can get out more easily than we can.
But is that our future to both of you? I mean, in a sense, you've both been, I mean, if the human barriers could be broken down and we live in this interconnected world, I think everything could change for civilization.
Well, I think that's the importance of NDEs, is they show at a very basic kind of level of the universe that we're all sharing one mind. I mean, it's certainly right at the heart of our book, Living in a Mindful Universe. I absolutely adore our friend and colleague, Dr. Larry Dossey's wonderful book, One Mind. To me, that's one of the most important books that's been written. He makes a beautiful case for how not only are humans sharing a mind, but in fact, all through the animal and plant worlds, you can start demonstrating tremendous kind of overlap of mind. And this is where we move away from the false sense of separation of materialism and start appreciating more the oneness of all, that and the interconnectedness. And certainly, if we rely on near-death experiences and what they tell us about that, and this is from cultures all around the world for thousands of years. Gregory Shushan has written extensively about NDEs and primitive cultures, and you find that they have a lot of the very same ingredients of everything that happens today. These are kind of a universal demonstration of a much grander realm that we're all part of. I mean, we're not separate from it. And that's the interesting thing. And that's why it's so important to start answering these questions. As I said earlier, since doctors developed cardiac resuscitation techniques in the late 1960s, we populated this world with tens of millions of people who've been to the other side and come back. And so that is, they demand real answers. They don't want some made up pseudo explanations from a materialist who's trying to deny and debunk it all. They want real answers. And that's where the scientific community today, with people like University of Virginia, with people like the Institute of Noetic Sciences, I mean, these are scientific groups, the Rhine Center in Durham, they all do a lot of important work to help kind of broaden our understanding, not just of the way this universe works, but also in particular, how can we as individual souls interact with this knowledge and put it to use in our lives? And that's where I think it's especially important. And that's the kind of thing I'll certainly be focusing on in my talks in San Diego, is trying to bring that personal element of meditative techniques and kind of ideas about the breakup of the kind of ego mind versus higher soul versus cosmic consciousness and our intersection with that. The brain is a filter. All these concepts are important in helping to liberate the individual to more freely live this emerging truth, which I would say is a truth that's been more than 5,000 years in building in humanity around this world. And interestingly enough, we find that we're getting to a point here with such great wisdom in the scientific world that they might have caught up with spiritual leaders from 5,000 years ago. So in other words, just like that T.S. Eliot poem where you get to the end and you realize you're right back where you started from, we can gain a lot more wisdom about the world we live in. But in so many ways, this wisdom has been around for a very long time.
There's an interesting point that some of you might know about that. About the most ancient texts that we have are the Vedic scriptures written 7,000 years ago. And they describe God as Brahman. And in the Vedic scriptures, Brahman is given 26 principles or 26 elements. Fast forward to quantum physics, and the unified field has been identified as having 26 principles. And the 26 principles of the unified field perfectly correlate with the 26 principles or elements of Brahman written 7,000 years ago. So our most ancient spiritual text and our most modern quantum science has come together to say the same thing.
And I love
Wow.
how Erwin Schrödinger really took a big interest in those texts that you're referring to. In fact, he had a dog called Atman, and he often said that Schrödinger's second equation was Atman equals Brahman.
I love
That shows you how quantum physics deeply, deeply, deeply informs us about the nature of reality. And our old materialist models and that local realism are not true. So this is a far grander reality of our spiritual essence and how it's alive and well in this material world.
Mm.
And
So
our wise Suzanne then, of course, has made it all about quantum love and quantum consciousness.
Thank you for that. Because what was coming up for me was the experiential and how does one enter the quantum field without having an ET contact experience or without having a near-death experience. And that's what we'll be doing during the retreat with the Kundalini activation on the beach. We have another meditation practitioner, doing a water consciousness meditation. Eben, you'll be teaching a workshop to drop people into the universal mind. Scott Taylor will be doing an afterlife meditation to help people have an afterlife type experience. And I know even with ET contact, I think if, someone were to really open up and invite that experience, that they may very well be able to have, extra dimensional, extraterrestrial, visitation. So, just to take it to that next level of, how does your average person, tap into the universal mind or access that quantum field? And so, retreats give people the opportunity to drop into guided experiences.
And for those of you who've come in, because I know some people have come in a little bit late, what we're talking about is this wonderful retreat taking place in 1 month in San Diego. It's Explore Quantum Consciousness, and the presenters you're seeing tonight, Whitley Strieber, Eben Alexander, we're still going to hear from Tim Spenny, are all going to be there, along with a whole lot of other amazing people. Bashar, our good friend Daryl Anka, is going to be there. And it's really like a who's who of people in the consciousness field. So you can find out all about it by going to San Diego Transcendence Retreat.com. I'm going to leave that up for people watching on Facebook or YouTube to take a screen share. San Diego Transcendence Retreat.com. And while I am doing a little promotion, we haven't taken a look at Whitley's website, and I want to take a moment to do that because there's a lot that Whitley provides. So his website is right here. Again, you can take a screen share of it if you wish. And it's unknowncountry.com. Unknowncountry.com. And there's a couple things I really want to point out. He was talking about the new version of his book, Transformation, now kind of re-edited, Transformation 2026. You can get it on Amazon, or you can click here and you get a signed copy from Whitley, which I certainly would encourage people to do. And it's part of the Communion series. And of course, if you want to get any of the other books, they're all right here. Them, A New World, Communion, and the key signed copy. So those are your options. You can get those on Unknown Country. And I also want to just really point out he's got a beautiful podcast. And you've got to put it in as Whitley Strieber's Unknown Country. But then you can find it on all the major ones, right?
It's Whitley Strieber's Dreamland.
Whitley Strieber's Dreamland. Okay, thank you. Whitley Strieber's Dreamland. And you can also find it by going to his website. You can follow him on YouTube. You can listen to the latest episode. The Devil's Deal. Now that's interesting. I'm just going to ask you, can you give us a few headlines of the Devil's Deal that controls disclosure, since that's such a big topic right now?
Unmute.
That is, yeah, that's kind of, if you notice, the disclosure process seems to proceed very slowly. There's no smoking gun, not quite. It's close, but not quite. And there is a social, there's a manipulation going on behind the scenes to make sure that it does not get to the point where the public can be absolutely certain that this is real. And there are probably a lot of reasons for that. Among them, the fact that they let so many people get abducted and they couldn't do anything or didn't do anything about it. And they didn't tell anybody about it either. And there's a whole lot of things that have happened. There's an enormous amounts of money have been spent, and there have been patents done. There's all kinds of things that have been done illegally or quasi-legally. And then you have situations such as discussed in that show about people who might have been able to really help in this. In the case of General Neil McCaslin, simply disappeared from the face of the earth. And he was, during the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump campaign, he was going to be tapped as the person who would manage the disclosure process, because he had been, prior to his retirement, which had happened just a year prior to that campaign, he had been the executive in the Air Force in charge of all of the different UFO-related programs, so he knew everything. And then Clinton didn't get elected, and the Trump administration probably would have also appointed him, but then COVID came along and no one was thinking about this stuff at that point. Then Biden wasn't willing to go down the disclosure path, and he did a few things, but not really disclosure. Then Trump comes back and he says, I'm gonna do it. And the next thing you know, this man with all of that critical information suddenly disappears from the face of the earth. The devil's deal is in that.
Wow.
Wow. Can you add what your theory is about what happened to him, or why he...
No, I don't have a theory about what happened to him. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wow.
Alan, as Mr. Making Contact, what does that bring up for you when you hear Whitley share that?
Well, there's always this give and take. There's like, is Elizondo a good guy or is he a bad guy? Are they giving us disclosure, or are they giving us the illusion of disclosure with these files? It doesn't mean anything. They're saying, do with it what you will. And they've been studying this for 80 years. So even though they're showing us pictures, these fuzzy pictures, it doesn't really mean anything. They're not giving us what I think comes down to the experiencer. How does this phenomena interact with consciousness? And that's the real disclosure. Don't you think so, Whitley?
Well, it's certainly going to be interacting with our consciousness if it hasn't already done that.
Right, but they're not telling us that.
But the question is, what does contact mean? What is it? Is it them coming down and coming in and sitting and sharing a cup of coffee with you? Somehow I don't think that's it. I have a feeling it's the deepest, most profound experience of sharing that you can imagine. It's the sharing of being, and the question is, how do we learn to do that? And how do they learn to do it with us? Because it is by no means certain that they know more about this than we do. We always assume, oh, well, they know it all, and I don't think so. I see them fumbling around and struggling with this. I think that they found us fairly recently. I think over the generations, there have been many contacts between us and beings from other realities or worlds. But these people came into contact with us fairly recently, because there's a lot of things that indicate that they're feeling their way and not at all sure what they're doing. And that would not be the case if they'd been here for thousands of years. I think they showed up during World War II or shortly before that, sometime in the maybe between World War I and World War II, and when they saw the atomic bombs going off, they decided that they would try to help us, and that's what they've been doing ever since. And it's easy.
But there's an up-leveling, I think they want, of human consciousness. It's what Eben's talking about, what all this, what Suzanne's whole conference is about. How do we become the new human being with regard for something bigger than the old materialistic self?
Well, how do we become a cosmic species? How do we become more than an earthly species? That, I have a feeling, does not mean getting in giant rocket ships and go rumbling off to Mars. I think it means something else. And that something else is what we're all about, this people like us.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of people like us, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring Tim Spenny up, because really I want Tim to be part of this conversation. And we're going to give him his segment a little bit later on in the show. But we're in such a fascinating conversation right now. And for those who don't know, Tim is the co-founder of uapedia.ai. It is an extraordinary website, and we're going to go take a look at it and do all that in a little bit. But Tim, I got to bring you in, because I'm curious what some of your thoughts are about this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. It's been fascinating hearing from Whitley and Eben about their experiences with non-human intelligences and near-death experiences. The work that we do at UApedia is really to help people have a trusted source of information about the phenomenon, so that as they have extraordinary experiences, they have a place to understand them and determine what is verified and what is probable and what's disputed, and what could be misidentified or even a hoax. So we at UApedia are using the phenomenon, UFOs and otherwise, as an on-ramp to high consciousness. And at the retreat in San Diego, what I'll be talking about is the entry points to high consciousness. So for Eben, having these near-death experiences is expanded his awareness. From what I understand in your work, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you were living this scientific life, 3D world. You had an experience, it expanded your awareness and raised your consciousness.
There's no going back.
And there's, it's like ringing a bell. And I've said that a lot from the experiences that I've had personally myself. When you ring that bell, especially think about Whitley, having these experiences out there in the cabin in the woods, or his communications with Anne after her passing. These are bells that are ringing that cannot be unrung. And I'm fascinated by this. So what I want to talk about at the retreat is, what are these various entry points? Are they psychedelics? Could you be a scientist that is studying quantum physics and stumble upon a realization scientifically that changes our reality and rings that bell that you can't unring? Could it be, like our work at UApedia is really a lot focused on, not entirely, UFOs. It's a very on-trend topic to help people understand that can route them to a higher state of awareness and consciousness. It could be a religious experience. It could be an experience that you have in nature. It could be a traumatic experience. So I want to walk through these with Suzanne on stage to kick off the conference and set the tone around, hey, you know, these experiences, these extraordinary experiences, at first don't seem related. What does a near-death experience have to do with UFOs? Or what does that have to do with a religious experience or even psychedelics or some traumatic experience? On the surface, they don't seem to be related, but what they can do for people is ring that bell, expand their awareness, allow them to be part of the collective consciousness in a way that they haven't been before. And then I want to talk a bit about, what happens when you have these experiences, are there things like synchronicities that happen, or are there high strangeness around you, or do you become more intuitive? Do you become more spiritual in general and have more sense of oneness with the world? So I've been fascinated by this conversation. I'm really looking forward to being in San Diego and talking about these and seeing the workshops in action to help people expand their consciousness and reach that higher state of awareness. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's interest in this, and it's I'm as much of a fan as I am a presenter. So it's just great to be here.
So we're going to go to music in a moment with Omoshar, but I want to wrap up this our kind of Q&A round table right now with a question for all of you. Is it possible that humanity has to have a radical shift in our compassion, in our consciousness, because we're so on the verge of destroying a lot, whether it's through climate change, whether it's through violence, whether it's through war, whether it's through all the various ways that humanity is being ignorant, that obviously our technology is greater than our consciousness. So is it possible that these are a wide variety of experiences being orchestrated so that we mature quickly? How does that land for each of you?
Well, I think we're at a fundamental inflection point. I think it's the most fundamental inflection point since the species first looked up at the stars. And we are living it. And this planet is not gonna let us stay like this. What's happening right now is the birth of mankind out of the planet Earth and into something else. And as the planet becomes more and more fragile, and we have it becomes less and less able to support us physically, which will happen over the next X number of years, and certainly in the lifetimes of most of us. What is happening, you can look at it a different way. The planet Earth is pregnant with mankind, and her waters are breaking. And we're going to go down the birth canal, whether we like it or not. We're already well into this process, and being born into a new reality is always scary, and we're going to be very damn noisy in the process, and we're going to wake up with a shock, and we're going to start yelling right away. But that's the beginning of the new mankind. It's coming, and we're going to almost...
I would just add that I think the vast majority of the world's problems have really come from this false sense of separation that is an inherent part of materialism. In reductive materialism, you break everything down into its parts and then analyze how they interact and presume that you can then predict how, in a bottom-up fashion, the world emerges. But there's much more evidence for top-down causality. And that's where I think mind over matter is so important, and this unification of mind, which is emerging as basically a scientific truth in explaining the nature of reality and brain-mind connection and all of our experiences, both together and separately, but ultimately that's the kind of shared experience that's so important. And that's what's showing us the oneness of mind and that binding force of love that's so apparent through NDEs. And from my perspective, I'm very optimistic about the future of this world, but that optimism is absolutely driven by a conviction that this revolution in understanding from this kind of many people to realizing we're all living together here to take care of each other, sharing the one mind, that will end up saving this planet. And given that there are millions of species that are currently threatened by one species with our climate change, our addiction to fossil fuels, and global warming, we're really getting into some very dangerous territory. And it is time to unite and gather the forces, fight this kind of tendency towards corporate greed and billionaires running off, accumulating more and more wealth, and start sharing wealth around this world to make it a far better place for all. I think any society that has starving children and billionaires, or even, might I say, trillionaires, is a very dysfunctional, sick, intoxicated society that needs a major change. And that major change is coming in the form of a paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift is all about oneness of mind and the binding force of love. And that is ultimately what will rescue us from the kind of caveman activities of the modern materialist, kind of militant atheist types.
Yeah, I think just to pull it all together, it seems like love and consciousness are actually the same force. I mean, because that oneness of love is the oneness of consciousness, and consciousness is who we really are. So in the new world that we're coming into, Whitley's saying, we've always been that, but it'll be a different sort of awareness of consciousness, and maybe an expansion of what it means to feel love and give love and be love, if you want to put it in those terms.
Beautiful. Well, a wonderful way to experience love is through the music of Omashar. So this is a chance we're at our kind of slightly past mid-show break, and let's all use some Omashar music to integrate all this wisdom and all the amazing things that our presenters have been sharing with us tonight. Whoop. I meant to go here. There we go. Every now and then that happens.
Whatever happened to the ones that came before? Did they just vanish into the blue? Maybe they're living the dream we know to be true, and reaching their hands back out of the blue. Heart is so ready to embrace all that's new. I feel the love calling for me to break on through. With peace on my mind, I know that I'm coming to a new way of life that feels so true. There's nothing here to hold me back from you. The clouds of my life have blown away. My lightness of being lifts me every day. I find myself feeling not so blue. Heart is so ready to embrace all that's new. I feel the love calling for me to break on through. With peace on my mind, I know that I'm coming to
was amazing. And I love your backdrop. Look at that.
I know, right?
Is that how you're going to get to Canada and England? You've arranged.
It actually is, brother. I got two craft waiting for me, one from here to Vancouver and one from there to Heathrow. So yes.
Wow, beautiful. Tim Spenny, if you can hear me, please turn on your camera because you're going to be up in a moment.
Yep.
Alan and Suzanne, while uh, we kind
Well,
of, well, yeah, what's coming up for you so far?
that was so good and so deep and so unanswerable, but so many questions, right, Suzanne? Isn't this your great vision to bring these people together?
What Eben and Whitley were sharing was just so mind blowing. So many incredible revelations. And I really liked the last answers that they gave about hope for humanity and such certainty about this shift that's coming for us. I love how Whitley talked about it's really the birth of humanity. And right now we're just going through sort of the painful birth canal, but, ultimately we'll emerge into this new reality. And so I'm also the eternal optimist, and I really hold out a lot of hope for humanity. I think that, your average person on planet Earth is a good-hearted, compassionate, kind being. And I think together we can really make this shift into more peace, unity, and harmony.
Yeah.
Right. And what Whitley's relationship with Anne and Eben's connection, there is something new happening on planet Earth, Scott, to us as human beings. The barriers between the worlds are breaking down, and we are becoming a new species. It's really remarkable. We're seeing this.
Well, that's a great segue for us to bring Tim up because
Okay.
I am so impressed with the work that UAPD is doing, and especially their conventions that have both really focused on consciousness, going way beyond just the phenomena, but really, okay, how is humanity changing and evolving? So I hope you don't mind that I brought you up a little bit quick there, Tim, but I just felt like I wanted to bring your voice into that conversation.
Yeah, appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, so we host at UApedia an online conference. It's free. And we've had two so far, UAP Con 1 and 2. UAP is unidentified anomalous phenomenon, and the con is really consciousness. We want to understand the intersection of the phenomenon and these extraordinary experiences that people have had, and how consciousness plays a role in these experiences. So we're in the process of planning our third conference. It'll be, boy, I got to get through Suzanne's wonderful conference in San Diego and then think about this a little bit more, but it's going to be in October. I believe the date now is October 4th. So we're booking speakers, and so more information will be coming out about that, but it's free. It's online. It's usually on a Sunday. And the other recordings are available on our YouTube channel, which is UAPCon. And they're available to take a look at. They're really great. We've had so many wonderful guests, including Whitley, in fact, that was in the first UAPCon, and Alan hosts that conference for us, along with our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Tara. And so we're looking forward to this in October to exploring the intersection of consciousness and the phenomenon again.
I just want to say about UApedia, there's a lot of stuff about UFOs on the internet, but what UApedia does is check their sources. It is a trusted place to go. It's not too woo, but they are on the edge, but they're also grounded in research and talking to the people. It's not like it's an exclusive sort of club. They're trying to make evidence and stories and research about UFOs, UAPs available to everyone in a really grounded way.
Well, let's take people to the website for a moment so people can see it. It's uapedia.ai, uapedia.ai. There's so much here, so many articles, so many highlights to look at. I mean, it's like the Smithsonian Institute the start of the Smithsonian Institute of UAP stories. And if you click here on UAP Con, that's where you can learn about. I'm going to accept all your cookies. That's where you can, go live and watch these two amazing summits that they had. And I was spellbound. I'm around this stuff all the time, and almost every speaker I couldn't stop listening. And I'm kind of a snob about this stuff because I've been around it for so long. So you guys are really the creme de la creme.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a resource. It's a very important resource for a world waking up to what? This mean this is real. This is why this is so important.
yeah.
Right, Suzanne?
Yes. I mean, I think the prevalence of contact is becoming crystal clear now. And, to a mainstream audience, especially with the release of, the most recent movie Disclosure and, all of the people stepping forward and talking about their experiences. I think that, I think contact, in a big prevalent way is happening now, even though, the spaceship may have not landed on the White House lawn yet. And maybe that will happen in 2027, like Bashar is telling us. But even so, like Whitley, and we've been exploring throughout this episode, it's part of our consciousness expansion. So beyond a physical experience with ETs, there's an expansion of consciousness that can give us access, to them, not just through channeling, but, through CE5 experiences and the telepathy. And so, yeah, I think that contact is imminent in many different forms.
Well,
So
yeah.
this is where we're going to start taking questions from the audience and comments from the audience. And there's a question that came in from Reverend Jeffrey, probably for Alan or Tim. Are you familiar with the study that's in the book Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence by Ray Hernandez?
Yeah.
Are either of you familiar with that book?
Yeah, I know Ray. He's a good guy. We should definitely get him on a conference there, Suzanne. Ray, what's the question then?
Well, I like your opinion of the study in that book.
No, I think that is the largest study on contactees. And what the result of that study was that people may have had a traumatic experience when it happened, but years later, they find it a very beneficial evolutionary moment in their lives. So what was seen negative to some turned out to be an awakening to another reality. And that's been the case for lots of people, maybe 85% in that free study.
I noticed that Whitley's here, so I'm going to bring Whitley up to comment on that because isn't that been your experience, Whitley? It started off as a shocking, scary experience, and then it's evolved into becoming this great awakening for you.
Well, exactly. In fact, the presentation I'm going to do in San Diego is called From Terror to Transformation. And it's about that journey. And it's a very fundamental journey, a very core human journey. And I remember I woke up in a room full of giant insects and they were after me. And that definitely was the terror part. It was really very scary. And, but, they brought all kinds of things, including gifts. They brought extraordinary gifts into my life, and I can't forget that. I've often thought about the abduction and all that occurred, and I decided finally that I'm very interested in the teachings of Jesus. I wrote a book about Jesus called Jesus: A New Vision. It's not quite a Christian book, but it certainly respects his teachings. And his teachings on forgiveness are very important. You can't really grow. If something happens to you and you can't forgive, you can't grow. So I'm very much, the abduction experience is very much in my past now. I am concentrating on the relationship that exists now, which is incredibly fruitful and wonderful and joyous and frankly a lot of fun.
Whitley,
I never could have believed I would have said that at first, but it's very true.
how much control do you now have with the contact with the visitors? Like, are you able to call them in? Are you able to, do you feel like it's more of a mutual exchange?
Well, there's some physical contact from actually quite a bit, but it's not like I said earlier, sitting down with across the table with a cup of coffee. It's quite different because they're not. I had a period when I was trying to get them to come, one of them to come live here in this flat for 2 weeks. And we went back and forth, and I gradually got down to 30 seconds.
Wow.
And she showed up for about 30 seconds. That's exactly what happened physically, because I was thinking, I've been doing this for so long and I never see you guys anymore. And when I lost the cabin in upstate New York, the last time I really had contact with the lady on the cover, well, she showed up at the little condo we were in San Antonio in the middle of the night with her guardians, and we went walking. We walked through the neighborhood, and she picked pecans off. It was the fall, and it was very quiet. It was November, and we didn't do anything except have a quiet walk. I don't recall any communication. Being with her, as soon as you get into her space, you see the world as she sees it more, and all of a sudden, all the buildings, which looked perfectly normal to me, didn't look so good. I mean, they were badly built, and I could see every crack and every crooked corner. And I thought to myself, a little chipmunk running around in his burrow thinks it's just fine. But if you're in a zoo and you watch him, his burrow is a filthy mess to you. And that's kind of how I think she sees our world. She once said to me, I once said to her, "What can I give you?" And she said, "Child, you are so poor. What could I possibly want from you?"
Wow.
And that's kind of where I am with her. I haven't seen her in a long time because I've been in cities ever since I lost the cabin. And that relationship, the physical part of it, was very private. I've never spoken about most of it, and I never will because at her request. And she's she's here. I'm working on a movie about this subject, and she showed up and took one of the writers out through the roof of their house in West Hollywood, and had 2 hours of missing time. And I said to her, "Do you want to find out what happened during the missing time?" And she said, "No, I don't. I think it has something to do with the script, and I think if I tried to do it that way, the inspiration would slip away." So she's very much in my life still. I love her very, very much. I love them all very dearly.
Well, the most, I think, bravest part was when you went, after being so traumatized, you decided to go back into the woods.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they were real. Ann and I sat there together one night, and you see, they're real. They're not human beings. These people came here in a flying saucer. And I'm not going to sit in this house and just ignore that. Maybe if I go out in the woods, or I said, maybe if we go out in the woods, they'll come back and we can get to know them. And she said, "Okay, go on out." It was about 11 o'clock at night. "Why don't you go and see what happens?" I said, "Well, why don't you come too?" She said, "I have a little boy in that bedroom. I'm not going out there." And that was hard. It was very scary because, they're not abstract to me. They're real. They're very real. But here's the amazing thing. It took me about a week of trying to get out of the backyard into the woods. I finally got into the woods, and I got back to the place. It was a moonlit, beautiful night where they had taken me, and I stood there And I just said in my mind, I am here. And damn if they didn't show up a couple days later and start knocking on the side of the house. It scared the cats so badly. You'll see that in the thing I do, by the way. The cats, cat's tail can puff up. The whole cat puffed up. They were on the back of the couch, and this knock was coming up on the top of the side of the house. And the cats looked like two giant caterpillars. I never saw anything like it. And they were going, meow, meow, really strange noises coming out of them. And I thought, maybe my cats are suggesting to me that I not go out there. And so I stayed in the house, and they left. And that's how the relationship has been. It's very, there's a lot of, it's not easy, let me put it that way, but it's very productive.
Well, you're a brave warrior of truth.
I think being with them is like having an NDE.
Well, you're on the front line somehow for the human race. You've done it more than anyone that probably in the history of the phenomena you've engaged them.
Well, apparently so, but that's because they took an interest in me, and I then took an interest in them.
But you're a great writer.
People always ask me, how do I do it? And it's a good question. The answer is I don't know. They just showed up in my life, and they made their choice, and that I don't know why they would choose one person over another.
Well, now that's an interesting question, because then we get a chicken or the egg. So just curious about your own personal view. Do you believe that it's possible that, we hear from Eben and others that there, outside of this realm, there is no time. So do you believe that it's possible that on a soul level, you did choose this as part of your soul's journey?
I have no idea. I can't answer the question because I don't have any factual basis for that. But, speaking of the incredible message that Eben has, he mentioned how millions of people have now had near-death experiences. The tradition of shamanism that dates back to the beginning of time, probably, of the species, is that you have to walk in the world of the dead in order to become a shaman. And what has happened is medical science has basically been manufacturing shamans on a massive scale.
I love that way of looking at it.
Yeah, and believe me, every one of those people is now living at a different frequency.
Yeah.
And the whole species is following them. So his message is very, very important. Because it's not, my message is, how do you live with the visitors? And as our frequency rises, more of us will do that. But his message is, how do you find the frequency that you need to reach? So, ask both of them. If you want to ask how to get into contact with him, you gotta definitely go to him, and then you come to me.
I want to read a comment from Carrie Harbin in our audience. She says, I had a very wild and frightening experience. And when she got back and discovered your book, Communion, it was very, very helpful, very validating, and very comforting. And I'm reading Carrie's comment because I think it reflects really the comments of thousands of people over the years, all those letters that you've received. How many of those people are you able to stay in contact with? And is there, just as you described, the NDE is creating shamans, well, communion and these experiences are creating shamans as well, yes?
Yeah, that's very true. I'm not in contact with them directly, many of them. It's been a long time since that happened. And but the letters are all collected at Rice, and so the letters are there. And I suppose that some of those people are still around and probably would be would be willing to contact me again, but I haven't pursued that. Anne did, and in the 90s, but so much happened in our lives. We went through a lot, and the fortunate thing is that somehow, by some miracle, she saved 3,000 or 4,000 of those letters. And
I seem to recall you saying that you were, at some point, you were going to donate those for research.
Directly
Tim?
to Rice
I
University.
did donate them. They're at Rice University. They're
Oh, okay. So you did. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. They are at the Archive of the Impossible at Rice University, and anyone can go look at them and read them. They're not. You have to sign an agreement that you won't read anybody, won't keep anybody's addresses or anything.
Right.
But you can see it. You can look at them. They're free to see.
No, I just want to say one thing, Whitley. The reason I think, who knows, why you were trying, because you're a good writer, you were able in communion to not just describe the experience, but actually give people the experience you were going through because of the way you wrote it. And the picture on the front, it was an initiation for the world communion. And that who knows, maybe that's why they picked you to be a spokesperson.
Maybe, who knows? I never think about that.
Okay, don't think about it. What happened to Tim? And
No, I'm just doing my thing. I mean, I'm a very stubborn person, and when people started to sneer at me and laugh at the fact that I was raped and all that stuff, I just said to myself, oh, hell, I'm not going to walk away from this now. The meaner they got, the more determined I became. And so, what happened to me on that night was both the most challenging and scariest thing that ever happened to me and the best experience of my life, both all wrapped into one.
well, did Tim Spenny have a question there, Scott?
I think Tim's working to get some more light going on.
Yeah, I think I'm all set now.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Let's bring Tim up.
Do you have a question there, Tim? Comment, Tim.
No, I didn't have much of a comment. I did put into the chat that at UApedia we did a full analysis of the free study that Edgar Mitchell did. This is looking at this is what was asked in the question earlier about the book Beyond UFOs and the Science of Consciousness. So if you look at that free study that Edgar Mitchell put together, it's a foundation for research into extraterrestrial and extraordinary encounters. And one of the things that we're trying to do at UApedia, and certainly through the presentation at the retreat in San Diego, is to normalize these extraordinary experiences. Whitley went through this really extraordinary experience. Certainly others have too. The book Communion and his other books have resonated with so many people. And being able to normalize those experiences, I think, is really important. And letting people know that they're not alone in these extraordinary experiences, and bringing it to the forefront so that people can find community and understand, the meaning behind some of these things that happen to humans. So outside of their five senses. So I think it's really important work. And I think the link, the study, the free study, is a really important study, and I'm happy that someone brought that out in the comments. It's really great.
Thanks for bringing it up, the extraordinary experience part, because more and more people are having that, and coming to the San Diego Transcendence retreat, people can share their extraordinary experience. For me, why I go to all these, it's our community, it's our family, it's the place where we can talk with, because no one's judging us about our strange, unusual experience. Right, Suzanne? That's sort of why you even do these, to bring together communities. Want to say
Yes, thank you for that. I mean, I've had my own personal experiences. I think these contact experiences are multi-generational. That's been the truth for our family. And I've been very transparent about it across
These
social media and YouTube, so it feels good to be able to share with a community who's open-minded to these things, and explore, why does this happen to certain people? And I think that answer is given in the way that it impacted the course of their life thereafter. And I think Whitley's a grand, representation of that.
Well, Suzanne, let's invite everyone who's listening to the retreat, the San Diego retreat, and you're going to give them a slight discount if they buy a ticket, right? What is that coupon?
Yes. Quantum 20 is the discount to get a 20% discount on all of our passes. Some of the passes are bundle passes where it includes the sunset dinner cruise, workshops. Also, we have just a regular weekend pass. You can just come for 2 days. And if you have favorite presenters, you can come for that day only. And then we do have the Bashar show on Saturday night. You can come for that afternoon, or the Wisdom from North show on Sunday night, and you can come just for that too. So you can go to the tickets page of the website and, choose the pass that works best for you. You can add on the dinner cruise. You can add on workshops. So we make it possible for you to customize your experience by choosing how you'd like to participate. And of course, we have summer specials that include a buy one, get one, half off, and then buy two and get one for free. So we have a summer special going on.
Right.
Beautiful. So here it all is. I'm just going to again tell people it's San Diego Transcendence Retreat.com. And then, you'll see all the different links. I've got it right now on tickets since that's what she was describing. And the coupon code 20% off is Quantum 20. So I'm looking forward to coming down. I would love to see a lot of our global peace tribers there. And like Alan was saying, this is a chance for us all to come together as family, to use Giara's term. We are friends and family, and we're coming together and to really meet and connect. And you meet the most extraordinary people. You always end up seeing new friends, making new friends. It's a beautiful experience.
Whitley, are you coming on the cruise? Are you coming on the Friday night cruise? Can you do that? Unmute.
I have to unmute first. Yeah, why not? I'd love to.
We'd love to have you there to get a chance to meet the public and have a it's beautiful. You're on this boat with great food, great dinner, with friendly people as the sun is.
San Diego, that harbor down there is absolutely beautiful. That's absolutely great. It's one of the prettiest cities in the United States.
It is. So people can meet Whitley on the boat if you want to come on the Friday, the 18th, and stay for the weekend. And other speakers will be on that cruise too. And
yes,
it's a really.
Who are some of the speakers that are going to be on the cruise, Suzanne?
The only speaker I know of who's not going to be on the cruise is Daryl Anka.
Oh, wow.
So I think everybody else is going to be on the cruise.
Everyone else, like name some of the other speakers.
Marilyn Gawaki, Lori McDonald, Leslie Mitchell Clark,
Barbara Lamb.
Evan Alexander, right? Tim, Daniel Branco. I'm sure that Corrine LeBron is going to join us, and Aaron French, Christina Aroche.
Yeah, it's a friendly, and the food was great last year. Really had a fun time, and it's just kind of a nice, intimate way to be all together on a ship.
Right. And then we get to go on the observatory deck after dinner. So who knows what we might see.
Right. Out of the bay. Well, San Diego is a hot spot. So
yeah.
Here's the poster with all the different people that are going to be the main presenters. I don't think you had mentioned William Henry, who's
Oh,
been
Oh,
on the
right.
thank you.
show.
Yes.
Well, we love William.
Yes.
Tangela, who of course we love from Soul Search, will be there. Janaki, the one from Wisdom from the North, Laurie McDonald. So it's really an incredible combination of people who are going to be there. And a dust of soul performers. So you've got some music and dance happening as well too, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning them because they will be playing music during the dinner cruise, but then they'll also have their own half-hour performance and play at intervals throughout. And they're both incredibly talented. She was actually an opera singer and he plays the keyboard. But yes, they play spiritual music that's very high vibrational. So that'll be beautiful.
Well, as we wind down this part, one thing I wanted to mention, Whitley, is my wife passed away 14 years ago. She was only 52, and I had a very similar experience to yours. She was very much around, but I was so close to it. I'd always wonder, why am I making this up? And it took all my different friends who were having amazing experiences with their lucid dream experiences, psychic conversations. I needed to hear it from them for about 3 months before I could trust my own direct experience with her. So I just wanted to say I really related, and I'm glad you shared your experience about Anne, and very similar to mine.
It looks like you're all intentionally turned away from us. That's what you said.
And how do we turn towards them, Whitley? How do we make contact?
Good question.
I think you have to give up a lot of things that we think are so necessary. Uh, like, Whitley is me. Really? Maybe Whitley is only something I use to navigate the world. Maybe there's someone else here who is much more innocent and much more available. And maybe that is who will be left when the body dies. And when your attention can come to rest there instead of your ego, you're getting a start.
That's a beautiful thing for us to maybe conclude this part of the show with. Let's all really open our imaginations. Einstein taught us that the imagination is the doorway to the other side. That's where all of his wisdom and all of his genius came through. And so let's open our imaginations. Let's imagine a conversation with a deceased loved one that you miss, or imagine a conversation with your favorite archetype or your favorite spiritual teacher. Just imagine what they're saying to you. And it doesn't even matter whether it's really them or just your imagination. It just might be one and the same.
Beautifully said.
Thanks, Scott.
That just kind of flowed through.
Yes.
That was a good one. Whitley, thank you so much for being with us. Looking forward to meeting you down in San Diego. Alan and Suzanne, thank you so much for putting this all together. And Tim, I'm your biggest fan. What you're doing with both the UAP Cons and UApedia is amazing. So I really, again, want to invite everybody, please go to uapedia.ai. I'll put everything in the chat one more time. And thank you. It's been a really beautiful, beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for hosting.
Absolutely. We have a little bit more show left. We are going to have a couple of Global Peace Tribe announcements, and then we are going to have our prayer time with Diara, and then we're going to have a closing song with our beloved brother Omashar. I always like to let people know what's coming up, and we've got two wonderful shows designed coming up this Saturday night. It's an evening with beloved friends. Omashar will be off on his adventures, and so Tatiana Speed is going to come in and be our musical guest. But it takes a village to replace Omashar. So we've also called upon Fanny and Vigari. So we're going to have Tatiana, Fanny, and Vigari providing musical experiences for us. And also, Donnie and Heather are going to take us on an entire journey that will include music and meditation and more. We're also going to hear from Marty Casey and Tess Cacciatore. They're going to tell us about what happened in Minneapolis. It was an amazing series of events that happened there connected to Unity Earth. They're going to even share some videos. So for those of us who weren't able to be there, we're going to be able to vicariously catch some of the highlights. And then finally, John and Summer Raymer are going to be back with us. And they have launched an extraordinary new program, which is going to lead us right into International Peace Week coming up in September, and a chance for all of us to participate in a very specific way to create more peace in the world. So Saturday night's going to be a really beautiful show. And then I think I'm going to actually bring up Diara to share about a week from tonight, Wednesday night, because this is a show that she and Reverend Jeffrey actually are both very involved in. So I'm going to bring you up, and I'm also going to bring up uh, Jeffrey if I can find him, if he's still in. Or Alan, if you can find Jeffrey, that would be great. Um, Diara, what's happening next Wednesday?
So next Wednesday, we are continuing our theme of Inside Out, which is what we're talking about tonight, is the subtle energies. And we're exploring educators on the cutting edge who are creating a new paradigm, who are revamping the educational system. And Reverend Jeffrey, I know you have a lot to say about this as well. And it's going to be fabulous. We're going to meet people on the cutting edge.
Absolutely. And you have no idea, what the kind of work's being done. It's just such an inspiration when you see people, the education and children, and what's going to be happening and what Andrew Freeman is doing. It's the cutting edge about what we're going to be bringing in. And what's so hopeful and so exciting are the children and the education and what they're bringing into us. Our job is just to steward them in, try to support them and educate them into what we're learning here so that they can take it to the next level of evolution into the world that we really want to see. And they'll bring it in because they're coming in so curious, so gifted, and people like they need people like the teachers, and so they need the teachers.
And they're coming
And we're going to hear from some of really great teachers. Marshall Lefferts is going to be back with us, Lee Kempter, Andrew Friedman, and a couple of new friends, Annie Margaret and Gabby Jubron. So, and our musical artist is going to be Gina Sala.
And she's amazing, Scott.
Gina is great. Gina is great. And so if we're getting the Omashar's positivity about Gina, what do you have to say about Gina, Omashar?
Just that she is an amazing instrumentalist and very, very I've got coughing to do. She's just very famous worldwide, and as when you check out her bio, she's played with the most amazing people. She's a Ravi Shankar level of quality of musicianship. So
Beautiful.
yes, I wouldn't mind meeting her as a fellow musician. Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to arrange for that to happen. We've got to start putting together more in-person events. So I'm holding the vision of Omashar and Gina Sala playing together at a Global Peace Tribe retreat. How's that sound?
I did share with her she's got big shoes to fill because she's going to have to come in here and fill in for our beloved Omashar. So she knows. I told her she's going to have to do it, fill in.
That's very nice, and we're all unique, and we all fill big shoes, and so thank you for that, Jeffrey.
I'm going to let Omashar get some water because he's going to be singing in a few minutes, but I'm going to put the spotlight on our beloved Diara for our prayer time.
Thank you, Scott. And to continue with the theme, our children are coming in wide awake, and what we're doing is we're teaching them how to see beyond the material realms, how to embrace the subtle energies, which is what we've been talking about all night tonight, whether it's an NDE, a near-death experience, where we've gone out, we've viewed what's we commonly call on the other side and come back into our bodies to explain and experiencing it, whether it's telekinesis or telepathy, whether it's communication between entities or other people in this realm, communication from the loved ones on the other side. And every time your phone rang tonight, Whitley, I couldn't help but wonder who that was. And we're seeing so much more communication. We've had lights flicker on and off. We've had things moved. So the stories that we may have chalked up to imagination, we can now embrace as more real as we explore the cosmic and galactic consciousness, past life experiences, as someone is saying, even the remote viewing that you do, Alan. All of these are beyond the material world. They're ways of taking the invisible and making it real, whereas we're in the past have been taught that only what is visible is real. And in the awakening world, we know that there's so much more, and that has been true through time. So in this moment of prayer, as we allow the essence of our beings, as we allow that part that Whitley was describing, the other than the personality, the other than the body that we are, just opening that space inside of ourselves, allowing more love and light in, and taking that breath in, just allowing our bodies to relax deeper into this conversation. And think about the experiences that you may have had personally and allow those to expand. Think about the things you've seen in dreams that may have come true, or dreams that you know where you've traveled, done astral projection. All these things that we talk about in our community, just allowing the expansion of those. And as we're opening ourselves to other beings, other entities, we're also remembering to protect ourselves as well, whether it's surrounding ourselves in light, whether it's asking our guardian angels, whether it's asking our higher power, whether you believe in God, grandmother, grandfather, Allah, all of our interspirituality and interfaith communications and conversations come in here. So just allowing yourself to open even more. Those of you that feel energy, you may even feel your hands tingling, you may feel your body tingling. And we ask that this divinity, this intersection between our human selves and our divine selves, we ask for that to expand in the ways that are right and correct for each one of us individually. We bless Suzanne and Alan and all the presenters in San Diego. We bless all those that come in and through our awakening world, all the musicians, all the psychics, all the propheters, all the seers, all the knowers. We are the way showers. We are the trailblazers. Just allowing our belief systems to expand. Sending love and light to all those in the Zoom room tonight. Many, many new friends here with us tonight. And as Scott said, we are family. We are friends who've become family. We are family. And we bless this safe, sacred space where we get to come in here and be our real selves. And we invite through our consciousness all those who are ready to awaken, to honor the experiences they've had. And those who are feeling loved ones, we also remind you that the grief, the level of grief that you feel is tantamount to the level of love that you experienced. And we bless those tears. We bless the expansion of peace as this silent space continues to open, as this spiral of life that moves up and down, includes the all of it. And we do this in ways that are right and safe for each of us. And we learn in this quiet space that there is so much. And we allow our sensitivities to continue to expand and open. We allow our sensitivities to continue to lead us, and our sensibilities become even more sensitive as well. And we bless those that are just learning. We bless those that are just becoming. And in this sacred space that we've expanded, we send our prayers out to all those needing extra help in the physical, in their bodies, the beautiful body temples that holds these spirits, these souls. And we send love and light and that forgiveness that we spoke of out to all those, first to forgive themselves, and then to be able to look around through new eyes to forgive each other in that quantum love. May we continue to grow into our new formats, our new capacities, that we see through new eyes, that we love through new hearts, that we move through new bodies, our light bodies, our light beings, our light love. And as we, these beautiful sensitive souls that we are, as we encounter density, let us become more resilient in our ability to bounce back. Let us become more gentle in our ability to remain strong. And as we learn to embrace what we call these paradox, may we increase our capacity to hold it all and to love it all and to be of service to all. And so giving yourself a big hug, because as we know, it starts with self-love, and then we can share that with each other. We pray for peace, and we send that out beyond, 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 and we see it come back. And we thank this higher truth for being present tonight. We bless all those that have walked the walk, that have had the courage to speak. And we bless the children that follow in our footsteps in all directions of time and space. And so it is.
I'm going to go to gallery view and let's have a minute of silence to just all send prayers for whatever's in our heart. Maximum grace for our beautiful planet, maximum grace to those that are in leadership positions to do what's truly the most loving choice for the whole. And may we all awaken individually and collectively, again with maximum grace. I want to thank whoever it was that noticed that the poster said Saturday. I quickly changed it. It's a Wednesday, August 29th, a week from today. And please do invite people to our wonderful awakening world. Every show is a good one. And I'm feeling a little sad. This is the last live Omashar experience for a few weeks. So let's all relish and appreciate our beautiful beloved brother.
Yes, Every show is a good one. I don't know what to say, Scott. You get deeply involved with the group consciousness as we have here, and you feel connected. And so I'm really looking forward to my adventure to Canada, and who knows what's going to happen in England, but something wonderful. That's for sure.
I'm holding a vision you're going to be able to work out going to Glastonbury while Alan and so many of our friends are there.
I wish I could, but I will have literally only been in my mother's like for 2 days. And so, I mean, my goodness, that's the biggest carrot ever. It's an interesting one. So anyway, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Are we ready? Are we ready, Glastonbury?
We are.
Let me shine a light inside, and I'll show you where your truth resides. And lift your eyes up to the skies, and I'll prove to you that nothing dies. Together we will rise again, for what we've done. Let me take your hands in mine as I look at you, your spirit shines. I know you hear me, so please do not fear me, 'cause I'm here to lift you, restore you to glory, and love you and hold you, and be your victory. My child, I will welcome you home. Welcome you home. You see, it's true that we are one, from the central sun. So when you take a different view, and you dream awake, breathe out the new, the world will come alive again, as we dance and sing and make new friends. I know you hear me, so please do not fear me, 'cause I'm here to lift you, restore you to glory, and love you and hold you, and be your victory. My child, I will welcome you home. Welcome you home. Welcome you home. So let me shine a light inside. I'll show you where your truth resides. So let me take your hands in mine as I look at you, your spirit shines. Alright, here we go. Ian, I know you hear me, so please do not Fitzgerald. My child, I will welcome you as well, you know. I'm getting lost.
Woo-hoo-hoo! That was amazing. The best one, Omashar, was when you actually said DRU, because the next line was you, and you got DRU right in there. Those
I know, man. Yeah. You can't write this unscripted stuff up. But I totally did not know how to end the song, so I just had to press off. But my voice is kind of gone when you don't eat for a few days. It happens.
Yeah, well, thank you for making it through three wonderful songs.
Oh,
Let's all send maximum grace to Omashar. Safe travels to Canada, safe travels to England, somehow finding a way to take good care of his mom and get to Glastonbury. And maximum grace for you to have the best trip ever and come back here safe and sound with a clean, healthy voice ready to continue your wonderful service with us.
thank you so much. And Susan, Vancouver.
And Susan in Vancouver.
No. She said where in Canada, and so I'm just looking at the chat.
Okay.
I have it flowing up the right-hand side of my screen, dude. I have everything here. Can't miss a jot. Anyway, whatever.
So we all, my head went into her praying for Susan Vancouver. So there you go.
Well, let's pray for her too. So,
hey, safe travels, brother. We love you very, very much.
Yes, thank you so much, and yes, I'll be back in September, Phil. Bye.
All right, everybody. God's blessings. Have a great couple of days. I hope to see all of you on Saturday. And remember, we're all going to use our imagination to connect to the other side.